Okay, long overdue week 6 and week 7 videos, what I'm going to try to accomplish. I don't have tons of time to do it. I already did a week 6 video, 30 minutes, totally normal, and then it didn't upload, so I don't know how to really handle that. But what I want to do first is go over the week 6 results. I got Ollie with me here today in the background, so I'm sure you'll hear some Ollie noises. Results. Bo beats me 12-5. Let me put the stats back up on the screen. I know it blocks it out. I'll shift the cameras so that you can see it once the video's actually done. Let me just back it up a little bit, actually. That's small, though. Yeah, we'll try it. I've been given the feedback that it's like you can't see the stats. So Bo ends up beating me badly, 12-5. It was much closer for the majority of the week. Some of the pitching categories really flipped on the last day, and my batting was atrocious. I had the worst average of all time, the worst slugging of all time, tied for the lowest home runs of all time, or perhaps the lowest. But I was okay, at least in walks, and I only committed one error. My pitching stats weren't bad, but Bo's were very good, which we've seen consistently from Mr. Bo. Big win in week 6 for Alex over Frank, 13-4. These were our top 2 teams, and figured it'd be, could be a championship preview. Certainly is possible. Alex's offense just totally dominated, and the pitching, although a couple of the stats were pretty good for Frank too. The big ERA and K per 9 numbers, Alex kind of dominated those as well. So a big win for Alex here. It's got to be a confidence boost. And this is all being said without any, reference to what happens the next week. But then we've got Brad beating Duran, 9-7-1. I bet Brad probably was hoping for a bigger number, but the pitching really let him down. And I think this may have been the impetus for a big pitching move from Brad, which happened later that week, or perhaps like at the early part of week 7. So 9-7-1 for Brad, 12-4-1 for French over Glenn. Kind of probably what you'd expect. The average and slugging and strikeouts, not good for French, but the counting numbers were all pretty solid. Hey, Oliver, don't play the bass right now. We're not jamming. And then the pitching numbers for French were good enough. They were okay. Not like really anything to write home about. Maffey beats Casey 11-6. The hot offensive stretch for Maffey has continued. Hitting 285, slugging 509. Like, that's tough. But Casey's offense also was not... Hey, let's stop that, please. Let's stop. Casey's offense also was not very good. So it's not just bad luck, right? The numbers really weren't there for Casey on offense. And then with pitching, neither side particularly strong, but Casey not quite good enough in a few different areas there either. So disappointing week. I know it's been a few losses in a row for Casey after having a really big... I think it was a few losses in a row. This is several weeks old at this point, so it's kind of hard to remember. But not really taking off yet, despite the big move to acquire some extra talent, a couple moves. Jeremiah finally gets off the losing streak and the unlucky streak with a big 13-3-1 win over Nate. The numbers weren't standout for Jeremiah, I would not say, but the numbers for Nate were poor, and Nate is, on the cusp at this point in time of selling a lot of his talent, and so it kind of checks out. So big win for Jeremiah, and then Corey wins 11-6 over JW. Corey had really not great offensive performance, but JW's offense was just nowhere to be found. And then regarding pitching, it was pretty decisive victories on all of the ratio numbers and some pretty close battles on the counting numbers. But yeah, Corey just got the 11-6 win. I'm going to fast forward and look at week 7 results right now. I hung tough with Frank, 7-10. So a 10-7 win for Frank. He basically swept offense. My offense was miserable. But the pitching for me was pretty good. I stuck to a 2.48 ERA. Hey, I was pretty happy to stick it, close to 500. Brad gets a pretty good win over Casey, 11-4-2. He got the better of him on offense and pitching. So Brad, this is the beneficiary of a team that had a couple extra players via trade from Nate, which we'll talk about as part of this video in a minute. Bo beats JW 11-5-1. A result you'd kind of expect. The JW offense, again, kind of didn't bring it. The pitching wasn't bad, but Bo's pitching continues to be really strong. 7 quality appearances is tough. Corey got a win 9-8 over French, 2 teams that look like locks for the playoffs. French really took the hitting and Corey really took the pitching. If you want to dumb it down, tight battle in terms of the category mix. It looks like several of the categories were not like particularly close, so they probably knew the score was going to be close to, even for most of the week, I'm guessing. Alex beats Maffey 9-8. The offense for Maffey cooled way down, but Alex's offense also really wasn't great. And then the pitching, Alex's numbers besides ERA were good and quality appearances, which is funny. He still struck people out, didn't walk anyone, didn't give up many hits, but he just had a bad ERA, gave up a bunch of homers, it looks like. So despite Christopher Sanchez's best efforts, as he has just been on an insane heater, the pitching numbers really weren't very strong for Alex this week.
This doesn't need batteries too.
Okay. Yeah, that's true. You can take them out. We have 8-7-2. Jeremiah beats Duran. Jeremiah basically losing all the offensive categories to Duran, who just freaking exploded. I mean, kind of out of nowhere. Hitting .319, .554 slugging, 16 homers. I believe that to be a pretty extreme outlier for Duran's offense. I don't think the offensive VTL has been very strong. So that's kind of crazy out of nowhere. Good sign for him. If he can hang kind of closer to 500 instead of taking some big losses, he may be able to hang on to a decent pick. And the pitching for Jeremiah, I would say, wasn't good, but it was good enough, as Duran's pitching has really taken a nosedive since that dominant Week 1 performance where we thought he may have, a top 3 staff. The VTL has just not supported that since that time. And Nate gets a win over Glenn, 8-7-2. Looks like pretty even mix on both sides of the ball, and I'm not seeing any numbers that you'd be happy with from either side, frankly. So it doesn't look like a matchup either team's going to be pumped up about, and it ended in close to a tie. Let's pause it here, and I'll start another video in a second. So quick look at Week 6 VTL-based numbers just for that week. We'll remove right now the actual results and just look at VTL. So Alex with an incredible VTL week back in Week 6 when he dominated Frank. Frank with just an average VTL week, so it makes sense why the margin of victory was really big. Jeremiah had an excellent week. French had an excellent week, both 63% or better. And then Casey at 55%, another pretty quality week. Bo, missed you there. Just under 60%. So we had a lot of strong performances and a lot of really weak performances. Myself, 37, JW, 35, Nate, 38, Brad, 33, and Duran, 28. In terms of the individual batting or pitching VTLs, just an incredible 85.5% VTL from Alex. I don't know exactly where that ranks, but I think that's probably a top 20-ish all-time number, VTL-wise. We don't get in the 80s, let alone the mid-80s very often, with single stat batting or pitching VTL. Just a crazy week. I think it was highlighted by a Logan Gilbert, Christopher Sanchez. I don't know if DeGrom was in that mix that night or someone, his other big, Logan Gilbert, did I say? Um,
E.
yeah, well, three dudes just went nuts on the same night for like 20 plus innings of insane shutout ball. Like it was crazy. And then there's some pretty high offensive numbers too. Alex also really good on offense, 73%. I mean, 78.9% total VTL. Maybe I should have made a bigger deal of that. I mean, we're nearing the 80% total VTL threshold. That's really rarefied air. In fact, let's just look. I haven't done any analysis of this in a long time. Yeah, dang. Okay, so yeah, we're talking like in terms of total VTL, that is a top 25 number of all time.
8.
That VTL. Alex had one of the best weeks in our league's history. Pretty scary. The VTL, wasn't as strong right in the beginning of the season, but it's rounding into form. And then let's take a look individually at week 7 next, and then we'll look at the updated totals for like the entire season. So week 7, we saw a really good Brad week, 71.7% VTL, 68% on both sides of the ball, 68% or better. That's a very hard thing to do. So a huge, huge week from Brad. Frank bounced back with a 65% week from his 52 in week 6. Bo with 61%, very strong number, basically identical to week 6. So he just keeps on chugging along at the upper 50s to 60s. Alex fell way back down week 7. We highlighted that matchup with Matthew was pretty low quality, relatively speaking. Better than me, but relatively speaking. Corey had a 60% week, and French 55. I actually was up at 51%. Hey. Looking individually, we saw Frank had a massive batting week at 79%. No one else. Brad at 68%, Duran at 67%. That Duran 67%, like, I need to know right now. Let's take a look at just the Duran stats and see how much of an outlier is that. Oh my God, Jeremiah. Let's add more fuel to the fire. Jeremiah, Duran had only exceeded 39% VTL once before your matchup. His numbers were 39, 50, 35, 25, 31, 29. And then when he saw that Jeremiah was on his schedule, he said, you know what? How about 67% batting VTL, just batting? The pitching was still really bad, and the pitching has been really bad for the last 5 weeks. Ever since the Gosman deal, it's just been downhill. But yeah, that is a pretty crazy outlier. I thought it was an outlier, but that's pretty extreme. Let's just look at the total numbers for the season. We're through 1/3 of the year. I usually break things down in terms of like the first, like T1, T2, T3 is what I call them, even though I've never loved that name. I just think with a 21-week regular season, breaking it down into 7-week chunks is natural. And we have some historical data already saved in our league documents just to reference how good has any team ever been in T1 or T2 or T3. Because we assume teams are fully formed by the time we're ending T2. And then T3, we've seen some very, very big shifts in terms of production because by the end of T2, your super team is formed. So all of T3, you should be kicking ass, basically. So here's the look at our total VTL numbers for the season. We have at the top of the league 57.79% shared by Bo and Frank. So Bo getting a little bit of a tough deal so far, being oh, you know what? Let's look at the standings. Never mind. He's in second. Yeah, tied for second with Frank. So Alex with the third VTL. That's just been slowly creeping up, but first in the standings. And then Bo and Frank second in the standings, but tied for first in VTL. Casey, actually, next up would be Corey at fourth. Then Casey, who is 11th in the standings but 5th in VTL. I think it's just crazy. It has to change at some point. 55% VTL for the season, 58 batting, 51 pitching. Like, that is good enough to be a legit playoff team and to be a pseudo contender as you hopefully add more pieces at the deadline or something. So I'm really surprised to see that the total standings have not improved. They've kind of stayed right where they are. Brad is next at 53%, really on the back of strong batting. When we all thought coming into the season his staff was going to be his strength, but we'll talk about trades in a minute. He's added a couple big arms, and that should help that 46% rise. Something of note too is like a huge discrepancy for Frank and Bo. 64.5% pitching VTL for Bo, just 51 on batting, and then 64% batting VTL for Frank with just 51% pitching. So both of them have a clear dominant side of the ball, and they're opposites, which is kind of fun. Just when you're thinking about like future potential championship matchup, what would that look like? But both know the side of the ball they need to make drastic improvements on. Alex is much more just right down the middle, 55% on both. Gives him a nice place. He can kind of just take value where it comes from here with future trades, I would think. So anyway, just looking at some of the contenders, and we have a few teams that are really down pretty bad. Our two expansion teams, which we would have predicted, and then JW is pretty much right there with them. Pretty massive gap in VTL between those bottom three teams and the rest of the pack. And we saw JW today open for business, so reach out to JW if you're interested in acquiring some dudes, contenders. Gave me $5 to say that. And let's look just a little bit at luck. So Jeremiah has been the most unlucky. The batting VTL just remains an insane 65% opponent VTL. Casey has been also unlucky, significantly so. 55% is the second hardest opponent VTL schedule, and I have had the third with a very strong batting VTL against me so far. Other than that, Brad has just had a super easy schedule. French has had a pretty easy schedule too. Those are the only two real standouts there. Most seasons this normalizes by about now. To see someone up at 57%, 55%, those are pretty significant. 42%, very significant. But I expect as we get closer and closer that these will all shrink down and be closer together. Let me hit stop here one more time, and then we'll do the final segment. Okay, so last part of this, we'll just be looking at some of the trades that have come through. I think on this one I could probably blow this up a bit. Whoops. Maybe a little less. So we have not had a league video since this trade went down. Well, we had one, but it didn't load. So we had a big deal happen a little while back between Glenn and Alex. Alex sent his first, second, and fourth for 3 low picks. He acquired DeGrom, who's just been on a nice roll, Christian Walker, who's having maybe a career year, and 2 elite closers, Cade Smith and Aroldis Chapman. In return, he gave up 4 players I don't think that are of like central importance in the deal. It was mostly the picks, I'm just assuming. First, second, fourth. So Alex kind of put his flag down for this season. He is number 1 in the standings, number 3 in the VTL. Just beat Frank handedly. He's going for it, and that is fun to see for a team that's been good for many years, but never quite got over the hump. This could be the year. I traded with French and got Connolly early and a third for Cole Young, Josh Hader, Juan Murillo, if that's how you say it. That's not exactly a blockbuster or anything, but it happened. We have Yuri Perez getting rerouted. I sent Yuri Perez to Casey as part of that Gunner and Nico deal. And Yuri, really struggling this year, got rerouted from Casey to French with Trevor McGill, also really struggling, and a 12th. And in return, French gave him Carter Jensen and Jake Berger. So a little infusion of pop, I suppose. 8 home runs for Berger and a low average. 6 home runs for Jensen, despite a low average. So I guess Casey really looking to add some of the power. And French picking up a couple down on their luck pitchers. Here's a big one. Frank acquires Jacob Misiorowski, Spencer Steer and Eric Sobrowski thrown in there too. And he gives up Cade Cavalli, Orion Kirkering, and Johnny DeLuca. No one of note, I would say. But he gives up his first, second, third. Kind of just for Misiorowski. I mean, Sobrowski's been really good. Don't get me wrong. Oh my God, 17 holds. That's worth more than I had bargained for. 17, oh my word. Anyway, a first, second, third for Misiorowski and a really good middle reliever. Seemed expensive, you know. Mizurowski had a 4-something ERA last year, but he's the best pitcher in the league probably right now. We look at his last 4 starts, literally no earned runs. I mean, basically 40 strikeouts to 5 walks, and he's only given up like, what is that, 9 hits. He's he's dealing. There's no doubt. Cy Young, right up there with Skeens in the NL probably. But it seemed a little pricey. Like I thought maybe Frank could maximize his 1, 2, 3 and get like 5 players back. So I think he just really wanted Mizurowski, and he wants him for the future too because he's cheap-ish. What, $12 I think. So funny that we had this Castillo Fairbanks trade. I think that Castillo just yeah. He's been kind of turned into a reliever almost at this point, I think. 6.41 ERA. So they're just hoping that each other kind of fix for each other. We have Nate and Brad making a trade. Nate gives Wu, Yamamoto, Yordan Alvarez, and then Brian Baker and Dylan Lee some relievers. And in return from Brad, he receives kind of his next wave of the future. Bobby Witt, the headliner, kind of a Witt for Alvarez swap, you could almost say. And then Eldridge, Zahir Hope, Jesus Luzardo, who he then flipped immediately, and Jackson Holiday. So if you do consider it kind of like Wu and Yordan Alvarez are almost a swap, it was almost kind of like Wu, Yamamoto, and 2 good relievers for a first, second, third, and Eldridge and Hope and Holiday. So pretty expensive, but I don't know. Like you want to say Wu and Yamamoto or Mizurowski. I don't know. I think I'd take Wu and Yamamoto. So it's not like he did give up Bobby Witt in the deal, but I'm like just kind of counterbalancing Yordan and Bobby Witt a little bit because they're both elite offensive producers. So anyway, a big deal. It makes Brad better. There's no question about that. So he's getting a big pitching boost to aid that like high 40s pitching VTL. And then last but not least, we have Nate trading Jeremiah. Nate acquires Bubba Chandler, Jackson Chorio, Edwin Arroyo, Isaac Collins, Tanner Bybee, and sends Ketel Marte, Corey Seager, Chris Bubich, Luzardo, who he had just acquired from Brad, and Seth Halverson, who I think was already dropped. So basically Marte, Seager, Bubich, and Luzardo for... And there was a third in there too. So, yeah. So that helps make Jeremiah better. He still had that third-round pick because the deal with me did not include one. So, yeah, a lot of big moves. A lot of teams that have now like put their flag on this season and said, I'm going all in. Alex does not have his first. Frank does not have his first. Corey does not have his first. Brad no longer has his first. Jeremiah no longer has his first. Casey no longer has his first. Nate and I are not really going to be going for it here. So the only teams really with first left are French, Bo, Maffey, that are going to go for it. JW officially signaling his intent to sell today. Nate and I obviously selling. The 2 expansion teams selling. That's 5. It's 14 teams. That means there's 9 left. And of those 9, 6 have already sold their first. So it's going to be a pretty intense race. There's going to be a lot of good teams. And I don't know that one team's really going to be able to separate themselves. I do wonder how long will Bo, Maffey, and French wait. Because if they don't deal their firsts, I would just assume they're probably not going to rise to the level of the top tier. But maybe one of them hedges their bets and just tries to be good but doesn't go all in. Because there isn't enough left to buy at the end of that stretch. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. Sorry to kind of cut it maybe a little bit shorter than I would like, but I have a tight timeline at lunch today, and I got plans tonight and the next couple days. So sorry that week 6 video never got uploaded. I did do it. Don't know why it wouldn't work. Couldn't figure it out. But here's your week 6 and 7, and we'll be back. I will try to do it on Sunday night. I hope this wasn't crazy loud with my boy back there. But we'll try to do another one for week 8 on Sunday. That's the goal.